At our parents' 40th anniversary, my sister gave a tribute video and erased me from every family photo. I left before dessert. The next day, she called asking why I ruined the night. I said, I just followed your lead. When you're cut out of your own family's memories, you face a brutal truth. You can either beg to be seen, or walk away from a family that never truly saw you to begin with. That night, as everyone applauded my sister's carefully edited tribute video, I realized that sometimes being erased from the family story is exactly the proof you need to write your own ending. Thank you for being here with me today. I hope you're having a peaceful day wherever you are. If you're watching this around the holidays, especially alone, I'd love for you to share in the comments where you are and how you're spending this season. It means a lot that you're here. Now, let's begin this story together. It was our parents' 40th anniversary, a big milestone marked with linen-covered tables, a rented banquet hall, and 200 smiles pretending this was one big happy family. My mom had her hair freshly curled. My dad was beaming in his gray suit, and the whole night shimmered with nostalgia. I sat near the front, nodding at relatives I barely spoke to anymore, sipping a glass of Pinot Grigio I didn't really want. I had shown up because it felt like the right thing to do, like a daughter's duty. I didn't realize then that duty had always been a one-way street in our family. After dinner, my sister, perfect as always, stood to give her tribute. She tapped her glass, smiled like she'd practiced in the mirror, and said, "Let's take a little walk down memory lane." The lights dimmed. The projector screen lit up, and our family's life began to unfold without me. It started with wedding photos of our parents, then clips of family trips, birthdays, 4th of July fireworks, snowball fights, Sunday dinners, my sister on stage at her piano recital, my sister in her high school cap and gown, my sister next to our parents in front of the Eiffel Tower, slide after slide. The crowd laughed, clapped, even gasped. And I just sat there, frozen, waiting to appear, waiting for proof that I had belonged to this family, too. But my face never came, not in the background, not as a blur in the corner. Nothing. It wasn't a simple oversight, it was intentional. Someone had gone frame by frame, trimming me out like I was the flaw in every memory, like my presence had been an inconvenience. When the video ended, the room erupted in applause. My mom wiped tears. My dad looked proud. My sister bowed her head modestly. And me, I sat there with my heart thudding like it was trying to warn me. You don't exist here anymore. So I stood. No announcement, no scene, just a slow rise, a quiet turn, and a walk toward the exit. My shoes tapped against the floor like punctuation marks to a sentence no one wanted to hear. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't wait for dessert. And the most telling part? No one came after me. No one called my name. I'd already been erased, they just didn't expect me to notice. She erased me, then blamed me for ruining her moment. That's the kind of twisted logic you only hear in families where appearances matter more than people. In our family, silence was golden, but only if it didn't disrupt the image. And my absence, apparently, had caused just enough disruption to warrant a call. It came around 10 a.m. The next morning, I hadn't slept much. I'd spent the night replaying the slideshow in my head, wondering if maybe I'd just missed something, some quick flash of my younger self, some cropped photo that barely held my smile. But the more I tried to convince myself, the clearer it became. I wasn't in it, and that wasn't an accident. When my phone rang and I saw her name, I knew it wouldn't be an apology. My sister didn't do remorse. She did spin, and right on cue, the first thing she said without even a good morning was, "Why would you leave like that? You completely ruined the night." I sat on the edge of the bed, holding the phone like it might burn me. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just said, "You erased me first." And for a second, there was silence. Not the kind that comes with realization, but the kind that comes when someone's trying to decide if they're the victim or the villain. She let out a huff, defensive already. "It wasn't like that," she said. "I just used the best photos I had. Best photos. Of 40 years, and none of them included me. Not one." She had time to dig up images from family trips I wasn't even on, but couldn't find a single one with me at Thanksgiving, or a birthday, or a wedding where I was a bridesmaid. I told her the truth. "You didn't forget me. You excluded me. And there's a difference. She started talking fast, layering excuses like wallpaper. It was rushed. There were too many files. You're reading too much into it. But I'd heard this song before. Every line a remix of every time I'd been dismissed. Every time my pain was treated like drama instead of a wound. When I didn't engage, she got frustrated. She accused me of being selfish, of making it all about me, as if quietly slipping out the door, after being publicly erased, was some grand act of sabotage. That was when I realized something important. She wasn't upset that I left. She was upset that anyone noticed I was gone. Because my absence said what my presence never could, that something was deeply wrong beneath the shiny surface she worked so hard to polish. So I ended the call with a sentence I didn't raise my voice to say. I didn't need to. The weight of it was enough. I just followed your lead. And I meant it. Erasure doesn't happen all at once. It starts in whispers, not screams. And when it's done by family, it rarely looks cruel. It looks like forgetfulness. It sounds like oops. Didn't mean to leave you out. But over time, those oopses add up, and you begin to wonder if maybe the forgetting wasn't an accident at all. It started subtly. A group text about Dad's retirement dinner that I never got. A photo collage for Mom's birthday with me conveniently cropped out. When I asked about it, my sister laughed and said, "Oh, I just used what was on my phone." No malice in her voice, just indifference. And somehow, that was worse. Then came the social media posts. Family brunch, with 10 smiling faces and an empty chair where I should have been. Sibling love. A throwback photo of her with our brother. Both teenagers, both laughing, both pretending I didn't exist. It became routine. I'd scroll past versions of our family that didn't include me and try to convince myself I didn't care. But I did. Every time I saw one of those curated moments, it hit me in the same quiet place. The part of me that still wanted to believe I belonged. And even though I tried to shrug it off, even though I told myself it was just photos, just captions, just oversight, I knew better. I wasn't invisible by mistake. I was being erased, one memory at a time. I tried to bring it up once, gently. I asked my sister if I'd done something wrong. If there was a reason I was always left out. She blinked, surprised not because she didn't know what I was talking about, but because I had the nerve to say it out loud. She told me I was too sensitive, that I read into things too much. And just like that, my hurt became my fault. That's how erasure works in families like mine. You're not pushed out. You're made to feel like leaving is your idea. Like you were always just a little too much, or not quite enough. And eventually, you stop asking to be included. You start making yourself smaller, quieter, easier to forget. By the time the slideshow played, the groundwork had already been laid. That night didn't create a rift, it revealed it. The tribute wasn't the beginning of the betrayal. It was the final proof that I'd already been written out of the story long ago. And the truth is, part of me had known it. I just wasn't ready to believe it until the screen went black. And I saw what they chose to remember and what they chose to erase. She could burn down the house and still be the favorite. That was the running joke in my head, except it stopped being funny the older we got. And the more real it became, because in our family, favoritism wasn't hidden. It was gift-wrapped, celebrated, and passed around like a tray of champagne. My sister was the golden child, not just in the way most families have, that one who shines a little brighter, but in the way that the rest of us, me, specifically, were expected to dim ourselves so she could sparkle. When she got a B+, it was because the teacher must have been unfair. When I got an A, it was well. That's expected, right? She's got fewer distractions. She was loud and charming and always took up space at the dinner table, in conversations, in the photo albums, and people loved her for it. Teachers, neighbors, even extended relatives gushed over her. That girl is going places. They'd say. Meanwhile, I was the quiet one, the helpful one, the one who got asked to take the photo, not be in it. When we fought, and we did, often I was always the one told to let it go. She had a lot on her plate. They said, she didn't mean it like that. They insisted. No one ever asked what I meant, what I felt. I was the emotional one, the overthinker, the one who made problems where there were none, and I started to believe it. I started to wonder if maybe I was the problem, if maybe being hurt by being left out meant I was weak. If speaking up about unfairness made me difficult, because when a golden child exists, the rest of the family learns to orbit around them, even if it means burning out in silence. It wasn't just about photo slides or forgotten invitations. It was about how every family story was told with her as the lead, and me as the silent background. At Christmas, she got the bigger gifts. At birthdays, she got the louder applause. And if I ever asked why, I got the tired explanation. She's just more expressive. You're low maintenance. But there's a difference between being low maintenance and being low priority. And I started to feel like I only existed to make things easier for them. For her. For the image they wanted to keep. My feelings were inconvenient. Her success was celebrated, and the more I tried to belong, the more it became clear I was just a supporting character in a story where she was always the hero. By the time the tribute video played, I wasn't even surprised she'd left me out. Disappointed. Yes, devastated. Quietly. But surprised. No, that was the most heartbreaking part. I had learned to expect less, because expecting more only led to being told I expected too much. They told me I was dramatic, but silence was killing me faster. That's the thing no one warns you about in families like mine. Staying quiet doesn't protect you. It just delays the moment when you finally break. I remember the first time I tried to bring it up. It was after yet another family event. I wasn't invited to a brunch where everyone posed for a group photo and posted it online with the caption, "All the siblings together again." Except I wasn't there, and no one noticed I was missing until I commented, "Looks like a great time." No one replied. The comment just sat there, like an empty chair at the table. A few days later, I called my mom. I didn't plan to accuse anyone. I just wanted acknowledgement. "A crack in the facade," I said. "Sometimes it feels like I'm not part of the family anymore." Her response was so calm it chilled me. "Don't be so sensitive," she said. "You always overthink things." I tried again. "It's not just one thing. It's everything. The photos, the invites, the way everyone talks over me when I'm there and forgets me when I'm not." She sighed, long and disappointed. "Why are you making drama? Your sister didn't do anything on purpose." That was the pattern. Every time I tried to explain how left out I felt, the answer came back like a verdict. "You're wrong for feeling this way. You're wrong for saying it out loud." I wasn't asking for fireworks. I was asking to be seen, but apparently that was too much. And when I finally tried to talk to my sister directly, no accusations, just honesty. She blinked and said, "I didn't know you were keeping score." Keeping score, as if being cut out of memories, out of conversations, out of photos, was just some petty tally. I told her, "It's not about score. It's about space, and I've been shrinking to make room for you for years." That was when I realized I'd been trained to be invisible. Not deliberately. Maybe, but consistently, steadily, enough that when I finally raised my voice, it sounded like noise to them. The hardest part wasn't being dismissed. It was realizing they believed they had done nothing wrong. That in their minds, I wasn't erased, I just didn't matter enough to notice. After that conversation, I stopped trying to fix things, because how do you repair something no one else believes is broken? The real betrayal, no one flinched when I vanished from 40 years of memories. The tribute video may have delivered the blow, but it was the silence afterward that did the most damage. Because it wasn't just that my sister had erased me, it was that no one cared enough to notice. As the applause faded and the lights came back on, I scanned the room. My mother dabbed tears from the corners of her eyes, smiling through them like she had just watched the most beautiful montage ever made. My father reached for his wine and raised his glass toward my sister, pride beaming from his face. My aunts leaned in to compliment her editing skills. My cousins were already uploading photos from the night with captions like, "What a legacy." And me? I sat there frozen in my chair, stunned into stillness. I waited for someone to notice, for anyone to turn to me and whisper, "Hey, I didn't see you in there. Was that on purpose?" But no one turned. No one blinked. The narrative had moved on, and I was no longer part of it. That silence said more than any insult ever could. It told me exactly where I stood outside the frame, outside the story, outside the version of family they had chosen to celebrate. And the worst part, I don't think they did it to hurt me. I think they did it because it was easier to pretend we were closer than we were, easier to cut out the complicated one. Easier to craft a clean, conflict-free story that fit neatly in a 5-minute video, with smiling faces and zero confrontation. My absence made their story smoother, and they liked it better that way. I could have stood up. I could have made a scene, demanded to know why I'd been erased. But in that moment, I understood that any reaction would just confirm what they already believed about me, that I was difficult, dramatic, too much. So instead, I walked away. Not because I was weak, but because that room didn't deserve a single ounce of my voice anymore. As I pushed open the doors and stepped into the cool night air, I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just let the silence follow me, heavier than anything anyone could have said. Because when 100 people see you being erased and say nothing, you start to realize maybe the only thing louder than betrayal is the silence that agrees with it. They didn't apologize. They rationalized. That was the most insulting part. Not the exclusion, not the silence, not even the betrayal. It was what came after when they tried to explain it all away, like what happened to me was some unfortunate misunderstanding, instead of a calculated choice wrapped in years of subtle rejection. The morning after the tribute, after my sister's call, came the trickle of messages. Not many, just enough to remind me that they saw I'd left and needed to do damage control. An aunt texted, "We missed you at dessert. Hope you're okay." A cousin sent a heart emoji. No words. And then my mom called. She didn't ask how I was. She didn't say she noticed I wasn't in the video. She didn't even ask why I left. She opened with, "I hope you're not still upset." It was such a beautiful night, and I don't want to spoil the memory. That one sentence told me everything. I wasn't a person with feelings. I was a threat to the family image. And now, they needed me to fall back in line. To smile and say I was fine. To keep the peace. I told her calmly. I wasn't in a single photo. Not one. And no one cared. She exhaled like I'd just brought up politics at Thanksgiving. "Your sister put that together last minute? It was just an oversight." I almost laughed. Last minute, it had music transitions, titles, a slow-motion pan across her college photos. "You're telling me no one noticed I was missing?" There was a pause. Then the tone shifted. "You know, this is exactly why people get frustrated with you. You always make everything about you. It was your father's night, not yours." There it was, my role, crystallized in one sentence. I was never allowed to feel anything if it interfered with someone else's celebration. Never allowed to voice pain unless I could do it quietly, privately, and preferably with a smile. Later that week, I got a message from my brother, one of the few relatives I still thought might understand. It said, "I know it sucked, but you leaving made it awkward. Next time, just stay and talk to someone." Yeah, next time, as if I was supposed to endure being publicly erased and then politely discuss it over coffee, as if my silence had become so expected that anything else was disruptive. No one said, "You're right." No one said, "I'm sorry." What they said, in a dozen different ways, was, "Get over it." And what I heard underneath all of it was, "We'd rather keep pretending than admit we hurt you." That was when I stopped answering calls, not out of anger but out of clarity. Because when someone shows you that your pain is inconvenient to their comfort, believe them and walk away. If you're erased quietly, leave loudly even if it's in silence. That was the lesson I took with me. I didn't throw accusations. I didn't make a scene. I didn't demand apologies that were never going to come. What I did was simple. I stopped waiting to be wanted. The first thing I did was leave the family group chat and not just mute it, but leave it. No announcement. No drama. Just a quiet exit from the digital space where I was rarely acknowledged unless someone needed something. Next came social media. I unfollowed, muted, and hid the smiling photos, the curated captions, the Sunday brunches and grateful sibling moments I had learned to scroll past without blinking, not out of spite, but out of self-preservation. I no longer wanted a front-row seat to a family story I was never truly part of. I moved physically. I found a small place in a different city. Nothing fancy, just quiet. Miney. It didn't echo with other people's expectations. It didn't hold the weight of old photos or untouched invitations. It was the first time in years that I could breathe without editing myself. People say you can't choose your family, but you can choose how much access they get to your peace. And I chose distance not to punish them, But to reclaim myself, I started reconnecting with people who saw me fully. Friends who didn't need me to explain why a video could cut so deep. Acquaintances who slowly became chosen family, one kind, consistent gesture at a time. I spent my weekends differently. I didn't wait for calls. I didn't scroll through group texts hoping for a last-minute invite. I started going on solo hikes, visiting bookstores, volunteering at shelters. I filled the spaces they'd left with something they couldn't take away. Self-respect. The truth is, I stopped trying to be included in a version of family that required me to shrink. I stopped fighting to be remembered by people who only saw me as a shadow to their golden child. And once I did that, once I gave myself permission to walk away, I realized something both heartbreaking and liberating. I didn't miss them as much as I thought I would. What I missed was the idea of family. The fantasy, the belief that someday they'd see me, but ideas can't hold you. Fantasies don't apologize. And waiting for recognition from people who benefit from forgetting you. That's not loyalty, that's self-erasure. So I chose something better. I chose to stop erasing myself just to make them comfortable. And the silence I live in now, it's not the cold, dismissive silence of being ignored. It's the kind of quiet that feels like coming home to myself. Family can wound you deeper than any enemy because they know where to cut. And when they do it with a smile, under the banner of tradition, or in the name of just keeping things simple, it doesn't feel like an attack. It feels like you're crazy for even noticing the blood. When I tell people what happened, if I tell them at all, I often get the same look. A soft wince, a polite nod, and then the line, "I'm sure they didn't mean it that way," as if intention has the power to erase impact. As if being hurt only counts when someone aimed to hurt you. But the truth is, family betrayal rarely looks like cruelty. It looks like being excluded from a photo album. It sounds like you're overreacting. It feels like being asked to smile in rooms that keep forgetting you exist. People outside the dynamic don't always get it. They think betrayal comes with shouting matches or slammed doors. They picture cut-off families as dramatic, theatrical messes. But mine smiled through it. Took photos, toasted to unity. All while slowly removing me from the narrative, one skipped invite. One silent birthday, one cropped memory at a time. And that's the hardest part to explain. It's not one moment, it's all of them. The accumulated weight of being overlooked, minimized, and redefined in a way that makes you smaller each time. Until you wake up one day and realize you're grieving people who are still alive because the version of them you loved only existed in your hope. What hurts most about family betrayal is that it robs you of belonging. It turns the word home into a place you tiptoe through. It turns sister into someone who edits you out, then accuses you of overreacting when you leave. It makes you question your memory, your worth, your very presence, and the worst part, it teaches you to do it to yourself before they can. I used to soften my voice, shrink my needs, rewrite my own history just to make the dynamic feel bearable. But now, I've learned that love without respect isn't love. Loyalty without mutual effort isn't family. And forgiveness without accountability isn't healing. It's surrender. Family betrayal isn't about what's said. It's about what's never acknowledged. It's about being hurt in a way that no one else sees but that you carry every time you walk into a room where everyone remembers a version of the past you were never allowed to live in. And once you see it, once you name it, you can't go back. You can't unfeel the erasure. You can't unhear the silence. But you can decide never to sit through it again. Sometimes, the only closure you get is the door you choose to close yourself. I never got an apology. No tearful call, no sudden realization from my sister, no late-night message from my mother saying, "We were wrong." Those moments you imagine when you're still hurting, when you picture them waking up and finally seeing you for who you are, they never came, and I stopped waiting for them. The last time I spoke to my sister, it wasn't dramatic. No screaming. No accusations. Just a voice that had finally stopped trembling. I told her, "One day, you'll play that video again, maybe at Mom and Dad's 50th. Maybe alone, and you'll realize what it really cost you." She didn't respond, and I didn't need her to, because by then, I understood I wasn't walking away from her. I was walking back to myself. I don't share this story because I think mine is unique. I share it because I know it's not. I know someone out there has been erased not by strangers, but by the people who are supposed to know them best. I know what it feels like to look at old photos and feel like a ghost. I know the pain of being the one who remembers everything, while everyone else conveniently forgets. To you, if you're still sitting at the table, still hoping to be invited back into a version of the family that never truly welcomed you, I see you. I know how heavy it is to stay silent. I know how confusing it feels to wonder if maybe you are the problem. You're not. You were simply too real for people committed to a fantasy, and realness is threatening when the family image relies on selective memory. So if you're waiting for permission to leave, to choose yourself, to stop trying to earn love that should have been given freely, consider this your sign. You don't have to stay in a story that erases you. Write a new one where you're not edited out, one where your voice is not too loud, your feelings are not too much, your presence is not an afterthought. And if your story starts quietly, with you walking away from the only version of home you've ever known, that's okay. Sometimes walking away is the loudest way to say, I deserve better. If you're still here, thank you for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, if you've ever been erased, forgotten, or silenced, leave a comment below and tell me your version. And if you're ready to rebuild quietly, in your own truth, hit subscribe. Because sometimes the most powerful stories begin the moment you stop waiting to be chosen and choose yourself.